sure that you don't overstay your welcome in a space. You also don't want to hurt your credibility, because if you are staying in an environment where the assignment has already come to an end, but you haven't discerned it's time for you to move, or you haven't discerned that God has or God is nudging you into a different environment, what could potentially also happen is that things start going wrong, where you are overstaying your welcome. And to the point where when you're doing things and the favor and the graces run out, is that you might inadvertently hurt your credibility. You might inadvertently hurt your reputation. You run reputational risk. It's always important to be vigilant and circumspect of your surroundings, so that you always know when it is time to go versus when it is time to stay, because the assignment is not done yet. Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Inge and I am a faith-based coach focused on all things growth mindset. I'm of the firm belief that because God hasn't given us a spirit of fear but of a sound mind, we should always occupy ourselves with seasons of learning and growth. This way we grow our minds and we come into closer alignment to the will of God and His purpose for us. This will further help us to always seek purpose-driven change and endeavor to create impacts that matter. If you'd like to connect with me and also work with me as a faith-based growth mindset coach, I will draw your attention to all of my contact details and other links to other social media platforms in the description box below. I further want to highlight that, to avoid getting lost in the source in the description box, rather start with the link that says #Take Charge Coach Readiness Questionnaire. That's the best place to start, especially if you are wondering if you are ready for a coaching journey, and to that also ready to work with me. Yes, sure, you might resonate with the videos, you might resonate with the teachings, but the process of coaching is slightly different. And so going through the questionnaire, it's a form of self-evaluation to really assess if you are ready for this, if you have the mindset to want to be more intentional about setting some coaching goals, or life goals rather, and through the coaching process, put in the time, investing the time in yourself to actually make work of achieving those goals. So my typical client would be somebody who is a high-performing individual, who is somebody that I'm taking a bit of a pause there, because one needs to be quite diplomatic about these things. But really, for me, a great client to work with is somebody who knows what they want, somebody who does not entertain mediocrity, knows and understands that when God calls them, when God has placed them on assignment, it's something to take quite seriously. And it's something that you cannot waste any time on. So if there are areas where there's opportunity to stretch, where there's opportunity to grow, where there's opportunity to develop oneself, um, that type of person is somebody who's going to grab a hold of whatever tools, whatever help is out there to actually help them get to that point, um, or level of readiness for God to really use them in the way that He wants to. So, as much as a coach, we typically would be accountability partners, yes, but we can't make you drink at the water when we help you and show you where to find the water. So when you reach out and decide you want to work with me, understand that it is going to be a type of process where there would be an expectation that you are going to put in the work, that you are going to be determined to get yourself ready and established for the Lord to use you for whatever assignment it is that He has called you. Because this is a faith-based coaching practice, everything is biblically based. Everything is covered by prayer, as well as the process itself. So we don't lean on our own understanding, but we go according to the leading and the guidance of the Holy Spirit. I had to put that there just to underline my process, how I work with clients. And again, if that resonates with you, if that speaks to you, I'm not called to help just anybody or everybody, but whoever I'm called to help, I'm prayerful that the Lord will lead them to wherever I'm visible. So may you give God your yes. If He has called you to partner with a coach, partner with someone like me who's a faith-based coach, working and focusing on in the realm of growth mindset. And yes, I trust that He will help us to get you from where you are to where you need to be, for Him to call you into the next assignment, into your next. In addition to how I work, how you can connect with me to work with me, I also would like to just draw your attention, in case this is the first video that you are watching of me. Firstly, welcome. Happy that you have stumbled upon my videos on YouTube. May it bless you. And I do pray that by the end of this video, you are fully convinced that this is the place that you would like to reside. So hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to notify the notification link, and so that you will always get those pop-ups whenever there's new content that I upload. So welcome. So I think this is now the second or the third video where I'm featuring the new branding linked to the coaching practice. So a quick background backstory is that I've gone through a bit of a change name, a little bit of a transformation, if you would like, from IL People Solutions. IL are the initials, my initials, Inge Love, and I have changed it to Victory in Growth Mindset. And of course, it was done quite prayerfully. I do believe that the new name truly encapsulates the philosophy and the spirit of the calling, of the purpose of this coaching practice, and to what God has called me to do, and how God is wanting me to to serve his people. So that is also just one admin point. I'm just thinking of other housekeeping stuff that I want to cover. Um, of course, how can I ever forget? I come with notes, as always. So, yes, I will look down from time to time, making sure that I do stick to my script, making sure that I don't go down too many rabbit holes. But I do trust and believe that with as rabbit holes go on my videos, they are still rabbit holes with substance, and that there's somebody out there on the receiving end of these teachings that will still find value from the rabbit holes. So that's housekeeping out of the way. So let me let us get stuck into the meat of this video. Now, this video, this coaching, this teaching that I'm doing has got to do with the concept of spiritual reassignment. Um, and I did a post of it, a written content, a short while ago, speaking on exactly this. And what kind of led me to think about this concept is that um, we all focus on our purpose, on our calling, our God ordained purpose, our God ordained calling, as we should, because we want to be in alignment. We want to know that we are actually walking in lockstep with God, guided by His Spirit. But there are times where we might be called to different areas in life. Now, my content, I typically am speaking to those who are Christ followers, or as I would like to call us, faith based professionals. That's quite a mouthful, I understand. But as faith based professionals who are called to the marketplace. So, we are expected to live out our faith in just our day-to-day activities, um, e- exhibiting the fruit of the spirit in the way we conduct ourselves, our decision making, the way we speak, how we treat others. And sometimes with us being in the marketplace, so you might be an executive, you might be an employee that's and not to diminish or minimize what it is that you do. I'm just using this as an example. But let's say you are somebody who works in um, who's a cleaner, for example, in a company, somebody who makes somebody who provides and makes the teas and the coffees, um, or somebody who even runs their own business. The point I'm trying to make is that when you are a child of God, when you are a Christ follower, the Lord assigns us to different roles, to different stations. In other words, into different occupational levels in terms of the hierarchy of how we see um, the world of corporate, the world of the professional environment. And you might be somebody who um, makes tea for an executive today, and then 5 months later, God calls you to actually step into an executive position, right? That's now a bit of hyperbole, but it is possible. It is possible. At the end of the day, it's about how do we steward the position, the calling that God has got us in. What do we do while we are in that position? And that's also where growth mindset comes in. Just as a side note, um, I come from the corporate space, 18 years in corporate. Um, And I've always been in the space of people development, learning and development, um, organizational transformation, and talent development. Um, whichever banner you want to use to describe that, but at the end of the day, my at the core of what I did, and the role that I had to steward, was helping individuals, developing individuals from, and helping them go from potential to actually lived out experience, lived out competence. So that in effect, and then the contribution to the organization then helps to transform the organization. So I've always been in a space or in a realm where development is concerned, growth, going from one level and elevating to the next, or you're going from one level to a different level, or one environment to a different environment, where it's a complete mindset shift, um, where you are learning new skills, you're learning new disciplines, um, or you are learning more advanced abilities or advanced skills. So I want to bring this back to where I am now, in terms of growth mindset coaching. Same concept, but the way I'm helping people, um, is is slightly different in terms of it's purely now focused on biblical principles. My audience would be an individual who is a Christ follower. I have a feeling this video might turn into two parts, but let's see how we go. But it was quite important for me to lay that foundation and position it in such a way so that you understand where I am coming from. Because do not ever get married to where you are at right now. We have a purpose, yes, but if you can imagine or picture an umbrella, so you have got the spokes that give the shape of the umbrella, and then you have the canvas or whatever the fabric type of material is that creates the covering. So the covering, that's the purpose. The spokes of the umbrella is what gives it its shape. Those are the assignments that God calls us into. And we might have the same assignment for, let's say, 10 years or 20 years. For other people, we might have different assignments in short bursts of time. Sometimes the assignment could be linked to a completely new company, new industry. Um, as an example, I've had the privilege of working across about 6 different industries in the span of my career. So I interacted with different mindsets. I interacted with different corporate cultures. I interacted with different groupings of individuals. Um, so for other people, it might just be that they work in the same company, but in different departments. But whichever way it goes, we all have a set of assignments apportioned to us by God. But the purpose of this coaching and teaching video is about being able to recognize when it is time, when God reassigns us spiritually. Because there are times where we might overstay our welcome. And then we can't understand why all of a sudden it feels like the proverbial pawpaw has hit the fan and everything is just going wrong. We are experiencing so much hostility all of a sudden. Something that used to go well, or something that we didn't have any effort to accomplish, all of a sudden it's difficult. There's just so much opposition. People where we used to have peaceable professional relationships with, all of a sudden, it's like you're hitting a brick wall all the time. And if you are discerning enough, you should be able to understand that the grace has come to an end in that environment. So now you need to have the spiritual discernment, the spiritual sight, the spiritual hearing to recognize and to hear when the Lord is saying, I need you to go here. The time, the assignment for this season, for this environment, for this grouping of people, it's been concluded. It's come to an end. Now, sometimes we might experience that spiritual reassignment in jarring ways. Um, in my example, I've experienced that in the form of being laid off. And I've been laid off in my career thrice, right? Other times, the reassignment is more gentle, more positive, in the form of a promotion. Or it might be that I move from one department to a different department. Sometimes, if I if I was actually walking in lockstep with the Lord, um, I was able to detect that, okay, there's a job opportunity somewhere, and I'm feeling a nudge to submit my CV, I need to be quite mindful of the terminology that I'm using. But yes, my CV, my resume, and then that door would be open. That door would open, and I would receive a job offer, and then I'm stepping into the next assignment. So there's different ways how these reassignments would transpire. So it's very important that as faith-based professionals, as people who are Christ followers, that we have to always be mindful that we have to recognize how God speaks to us, how He um, gives us indications of or instructions when things need to be done, when we need to do things differently. Because we are individuals, He will speak to us in that unique individual way. So we have to be quite mindful that we are sensitive to that. And the post that I did speaking on spiritual reassignment, um, there's just a few points that I would like to just highlight from that. The one is around the importance of discernment. So, if you are still with me, um, you might have picked up that that's essentially what I've been touching on right now. It's the recognition when we are being reassigned. It is so important. It's an ability, a spiritual gift that we have to grow into. We have to really work on maturing in that, and the only way we can do that is by spending consistent time in Scripture, spending consistent time in the presence of the Lord. It's like with any human relationship, that the more time you spend with somebody, the stronger the relationship, the more you recognize and know and trust and have confidence in that person's character. You know how they move, you know how they behave, you know how they speak. And even in a crowded room, you are able to recognize their voice when you hear it. So that is how we mature in our discernment. What's also quite key is that this discernment, this ability to cultivate, is quite important, because it helps us not to overstay our welcome in a place, right? When you overstay your welcome, and again, I use a human based example where when you are visiting somebody, you get certain individuals who can get to that point of, I don't want to say rudeness, but where I do hope no one, there aren't people who do that. But anyway, I'm going to use the example. So if you overstay your welcome at someone's place, right? They get to the point where they actually switch their lights off. And that's a clear sign that, okay, this visit has come to an abrupt end and it's time for me to go, right? Um, I'm bordering on hyperbole, but just to land the point. So important to have strong discernment so as to not overstay your welcome, right? Um, because usually it leads to unpleasant experiences, which quite possibly could um, cause irreparable damage, right? So in the corporate environment, in the marketplace, relationships, networks are quite important, and you want to minimize um, the occurrences of burning bridges, because you never know, down the line you might interact with this individual again, and so you want to always engage with kindness, because that just gives or places favor upon you, not just only with God, but with other individuals that you interact with. So be sure that you don't overstay your welcome in a space. Um, you also don't want to hurt your credibility, because if you are staying in an environment where the assignment has already come to an end, but you haven't discerned it's time for you to move, or you haven't discerned that God has, or God is nudging you into a different environment, what could potentially also happen is that things start going wrong, where you are overstaying your welcome. And to the point where when you're doing things and the favor and the graces run out, is that you might inadvertently hurt your credibility. You might inadvertently hurt your reputation. You run reputational risk. Um, so that is also something you do not want to, you don't want it to get to that point or to that level. It's always important to be vigilant, and circumspect of your surroundings, so that you always know when it is time to go versus when it is time to stay, because the assignment is not done yet. So, discernment and environmental awareness will help you or enable you to read the proverbial room, so to speak. Moving into the new environment or into your new assignment, this is where the Lord then pivots you into. So, it might also allow for seasonal relationships, or connections, where these may also come to an end, because sometimes your assignment was a person or a group of people. So if you also even overstay your welcome in the group with a group of individuals, um, relationships can also relationships tend to be damaged, if you overstay. So always be mindful and have that awareness, of your surroundings. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to end this coaching or teaching video here. um, I will do a part two, because this is a concept that I do not want to rush through. So I do pray that, if you have found this video edifying, and helpful, please be sure to stay tuned for part two. Ultimately, what I am trying to help us get to is to always seek purpose-driven change, understanding that we have been created to be salt and light in this world. And if we understand that, we also then understand that we've been created, um, to bring about impact that matters. So let's always have the heart, and the desire to cultivate a growth mindset, to to seek the Lord, to understand what purpose He has called us to, and then to endeavor to bring about that impact and that transformational change in line with that purpose, that calling He has placed upon our lives. I will see you in part 2.